Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, we're turning our attention now to food security, the Agric Ministry. And so that's why we've got Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, Minister of State for Agriculture. He's here in the studios. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Chamberlain. I'm Makwe.
Well,
it's a pleasure to see you once again.
I think it's almost a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since we saw you last
Your
days in the Senate. And so interested now. How is this ministry? So how are you fitting in?
Well, interesting. Alhamdulillah. We're on ground and we're trying our best to do the work Mr. President has assigned to us.
But a lot of people expect so much across board different ministries, including yours, because we know how important food is. I mean, if you don't get it right,
we know about this because the first priority out of the 8-point agenda, the number one is food security.
Oh, nice.
So at least that is not lost on us, and we are working very hard to make sure we live up to the expectation.
When you say you're working very hard, precisely what would you say you're currently doing?
Well, thank you very much, Makwe, and maybe let me say Happy New Year to Nigerians. Actually, when we came on board last year, what we did was we spent the better part of the first 2 months receiving briefings, trying to understand what exactly is happening on ground, where the ministry is, what they are doing, and what is working, what is not working, what are the challenges, and how we are going to be able to bring all of this together and align it to the Renew Hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. And of course, it became much easier for us because Mr. President's vision is very clear. At the very first Federal Executive Council meeting, he unveiled his 8-point agenda, and the very first one on that 8-point agenda is food security. And then the other component of it that is very relevant to our mandate is the economic growth and job creation, then the poverty eradication, and then, of course, inclusivity, among others. But these very ones, and then access to capital, these are the ones we, analyzed and saw that it is relevant to what we're going to be doing. So having achieved that, what we did was to sit down with the ministry officials and to sit down and begin to look at areas of alignment. So it was after the areas of alignment that we now unveiled what will be our focal areas in the next 4 years, sometimes October last year, along with my colleague, Senator Obakar Kyari. So having done that, we are actually beginning to now begin the process of implementation. But if you also recall, in that unveiling of our focal area, we provided the immediate, the ones we call immediate, which was up to end of December. And it is in this that the dry season farming, which we have already commenced, was captured. Now, starting from this year, of course, the budget has been signed, and we're yet to get the details, but the entire concept of what we have provided in our budget is actually to begin to work out how we're going to implement those things we have identified in our immediate short-term and then medium-term and some component of even the long-term.
You spoke about 4 focal areas. What are they?
Well, the focal areas here are specifically looking at how we're going to align the existing programs in terms of value chain development, in terms of seed production, in terms of processing, in terms of, that is across both crops, the livestock, fisheries, and even the aspect of input. So in all of this, we're looking at then at different layers, so that at the end of the day, what we want to see is to drive production. But beyond driving production also, we need to drive processing. And in doing so, we'll be reducing things like post-harvest losses, which we know is a major problem for many of our farmers. And in terms of the production, our focus right now is on the food security commodity, or the staples, as you want to call them. And I think if you listen to Mr. President's New Year speech, he also alluded to those things, because those are the clear directions he has given us.
Well, I want to drill down a bit, but I also want you to, let's drill down now, because I know that the Ministry of Agriculture does not have land of its own. Maybe the only land that the federal government has is that right here in the Federal Capital Territory. Every other land the Ministry of Agriculture is hoping to work with are located within the states.
Yeah.
So precisely how, because you've spoken about value chain, seed production, process. How do the states come into this plan, the states that actually have the land?
All right. You see, when the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is having a program, we have critical stakeholders, and the state governors or state governments are one. Then we also have the various commodity associations and private sector operators. So what we do here is we have a meeting. On the basis of that meeting, there will be a plan that will be worked out. Now, let me give you an example of what already is on ground. The National Agricultural Growth Scheme Agro Pocket Project, which is under which we are promoting the dry season farming. We started with the wheat program.
What did you call it again?
National Agricultural Growth Scheme, Agro Pocket. It's African Development Bank, policy support funding to Nigeria to ensure that, because of the increasing price of food, the idea is for us to increase production so that we'll be able to bring down price of food commodity. So we started with the dry season farming, which started in December last year.
And wheat is a priority?
Yes, wheat is one of the priorities.
Is there a reason why that is?
Yes, Nigeria currently needs about, annually we consume almost 6 million metric tons of wheat, most of which is imported. Nigeria is not producing even 500,000. So the idea is for us, and yet we have internal capacity. So that is
to produce wheat.
To produce wheat.
I know that before now, it's interesting, the current, the current head of the African Development Bank, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina, tried to promote substitute wheat for cassava. That didn't quite work. I mean, cassava bread, yes, was
there were a lot of issues.
Yes,
a lot of issues.
But now it didn't quite take off.
I think we're trying
have we abandoned it completely?
Well, that issue is being reviewed because cassava is also one of the staples we are producing. Okay. It's part of our food security crops. So, but right now our main focus is what do we do with wheat. And the reason why we're emphasizing that is because this is the wheat season. Wheat has its own period. If you miss it, then it's gone. So generally agriculture is time bound, so you don't have to miss it. So what we have done now, you were asking earlier, how does the state government come on? So what we do here is we identify for each commodity, we know the states that have the capacity to produce it. So, and in Nigeria today, the wheat producing states are 15. All the northern states minus Nasarawa, Benue, Kwara, and Kogi. 15 of them. All the others, they have pockets of areas where wheat is being produced. So having done this mapping, we sit down and identify the hectareage that is possible. Now, in doing that, the various state governments have been coming forward to show us their interest and their willingness to participate. And I think the one that came out very strongly is Jigawa State. Perhaps because they have the largest available land for such exercise. And their farmers are not new to such type of production also. So Jigawa State contributed almost 40,000, but just 2 weeks...
40,000 hectares.
40,000 hectares. So just Friday, the governor visited us in the ministry to see the two of us, Senator Abdullahi and myself, and he informed us of the fact that they are surpassing even 15,000 hectares based on other people who are outside the state government's own, what do they call it, but they are also producing. Like the flour mills, they are producing 5,000 hectares, and then there are other people with pockets of their own farmlands, which added up will take us to about 50,000 hectares.
Okay, so priority crops, just quickly, Mr. Timberlake, you've mentioned wheat. What other crops are we looking at?
The other crops we're looking at is rice, maize, cassava, millet, sorghum, soybean. All of these are the critical food security crop. And then, of course, in that, you can also put yam and maybe potato, sweet potato, Irish potato. Those are the crops that combined together are the critical food security crop. From different parts of the country, their diet is around these commodities. But in terms of the program that I mentioned, the interest is on wheat, maize, rice, and cassava. That's for the NACS AP, which I mentioned earlier.
What is the government's thinking about impacting on the prices of food?
Government thinking is actually to provide that food security. And here, when you say food security, you are saying that that situation where all citizens are able to, on a continuous basis, have access to food that is affordable, they can afford to buy, is accessible to them, and in the right nutritious content on a continuous basis.
But we know that, I mean, clearly, several people have been warning that we will have food shortage this year because of the activities of terrorists driving farmers away from their farms. And so it's clear that that will happen. What is the ministry doing about this?
Well, I think as a response, that explains why we're trying to maximize available opportunities like the dry season farming. So areas where there are no terrorists and they have, farmlands and they can go into irrigation, we are supporting them to go into irrigation farming. We kickstart wheat in February. Right now, preparations are in top gear for maize, rice, and cassava. So in the next 2 weeks, when all of these preparations, stakeholder meetings, which you asked earlier, this is how the various state governments come on board because they are stakeholders, so we have to engage them. And in the process, they provide the farmers to us. They tell us we have so number of farmers and they have so number of land. So all of this is right now taking place for rice, maize, and cassava. So immediately we're able to do that. Sometimes in February, hopefully we should be able to, roll out that particular production. Now, the whole idea here is to bring all our productive areas into operation. Now, this year also, thinking about the reduction in areas where farmers are able to farm because of the banditry and terrorist activities, we asked one simple question. There are many government agencies that have lands, universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, federal government colleges and the like, our research institutes. So right now, since last year, we've asked them to submit the available lands to us. Any moment this year, because it's going to be part of this year's project. So if the budget is finally, the details are provided to us, one of the activities we intend to do is to validate those things they said they have. The idea is to prepare all of this towards the next rainy season so that most of these redundant farmland or fallowed land can be brought into production to cover up for the loss in those areas where there are security challenges.
Ever since the government announced the state of emergency in the food agri sector to avoid shortages, what has changed?
Well, what has changed is the fact that, of course, Mr. President did that in July. What has changed is that he has 2 ministers who he has given the responsibility of driving his agenda for the sector. What has changed is that he has prioritized food security. Because if we check the Constitution, definitely food security is non-negotiable. And so Mr. President has placed it to where it ought to be, in the front burner. And for us, what we want to bring is a new direction. A new direction in which genuine farmers who are truly tilling the land are going to be the ones getting the right support.
Was it going to portfolio farmers before now?
Absolutely, you are right if you say so. Because for all we can say, some of the programs that have happened before, people will come because you see the support. When the support is being packaged, the support is being packaged targeting number of farmers. So what we are saying now is that we don't want to target number of farmers. We want to target the hectareage because it is in the land they are going to produce. A farmer can decide, if you are looking at human beings, you can have 1 million farmers, but do they have 100,000 hectares of land?
So you go to the hectare to check who is where?
That is what we are doing now. As part of one of our projects this year, we are taking the issue of agricultural farmland data very seriously.
So if I have a farm, how do you reach me?
I'm telling you, that is what we are taking very seriously. Now, technology is going to aid us to do that. And let me give you an example. Right now, as we speak, the reason why Jigawa State is able to provide this 40,000 hectares is because Jigawa State is already doing that. So what we want to do is to bring this new thinking across the board. And of course, through the instrument of the National Council on Agriculture, we intend to ramp up this issue and see how other states, because many states are actually trying their best around this area.
You know, this point you made, Senator, we had a farmer here. Guys, I don't know if you remember, he's a banker. He used to be a banker, I think, with the First Bank.
Okay.
He retired, he runs a farm somewhere in the southwest states. And he says, government's presence is zero.
Yeah. He's right if you say so. Because the issue is simple. When you don't know where the farms are, when you don't know the farmers, definitely, when you say you have a support you want to give, people will come forward. And we've realized that it is the ghost farmers or the portfolio farmers or those people who are having access that are able to come forward to claim that I have 10,000 hectares, I have, even for this wheat program, I want to tell you clearly, when it started, the number of hectareage people were claiming reduced by the time we sent our officers to go out to the field and to begin to verify. And that also explains why, to show how serious we are, that explains why Senator Abubakar Kyari last year, was in Jigawa even before the kickoff of the program, to see the farmlands for himself. That is the new thinking. That is what we are bringing to the table. Because we realize very well that government is pumping money into the sector. Government is bringing in money into the sector. But where is the money going to? Is it going to the right? Is it going to the right people? I think that is something questionable. So what we want to do is, we don't want to be caught in that web. What we want to do is to make sure that if we say we are going to plant 100,000 hectares, let's be sure that we know where the 100,000 hectares are. And in fact, we are bringing in a new way of doing this because we want to start supporting soil tests for farmers, so that for every farm, this issue of fertilizer application, it's not all farms that need fertilization, and even not all type of fertilization, and even the quantum. So we want to bring in science, we want to bring in technology to help our farmers to do better and to sieve out and remove those bad eggs in the farming landscape, so that the genuine farmers who are truly interested will get government support. So we are going to do that. We are putting in place, in fact, from the projects we are going to implement this year, we have projects that will begin to tell us these issues as they are.
Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Honorable Minister, what for you would be the most critical issues to tackle in order to avert food shortage in the country? Part of the issues that have been responsible for the high cost of food in various parts of the country is that of logistics on the one hand, movement from place to place, and then taxes at the various markets. Another one that has been a major issue is that of post-harvest loss by the ones that the farmers themselves have to go through. The third in that line would be that of storage of these foods, that, of course, if they are not able to store, then they lose them. Another one on that list would be that of extension officers. A number of people have said that the absence of extension officers has greatly affected our harvests in food production in the country. For you, are these significant, and how is the federal government tackling them?
Thank you very much, Ayo. Happy New Year to you. Let me say this. You are very, very right on point. Everything you said is spot on. And I will tell you that in the programs we will start implementing this year, all of these issues are going to be tackled. Let me start with the issue of extension. We realize that the shortage of extension workers is a critical issue. But is it only by having the physical, personnel that we can deliver extension services? No. Technology is making life easier now. So we are bringing in ICT-enabled extension service. It's part of our project this year, where we're going to bring in a platform that will enable farmers to have access to information they need to run their farming operations seamlessly. But at the same time, is a mixed model, because we are also encouraging that we're going to encourage the growth of extension agents. And I think some states are already beginning to realize that. And here again, for lack of all the facts before us, let me say that Jigawa State has also told us, apart from the ones they've trained, about 1,000 last year, the governor has added another 1,200 because of the oncoming rice program. So, and I'm sure states, the other states, because even my governor, Niger State, has shown interest in that is going to work to increase the number of extension agents so that they will effectively participate. But what we are bringing to the table is to bring in an ICT-enabled platform where all the key information that farmers will require will be put in place, and we will take advantage of the farmers linking to the social media to ensure that we are able to get adequate information across to them. Now, the other aspect of this same technology is the fact that it will afford us the ability to even provide some of this information in the knowledge the farmer understand, perhaps in the 3 major languages and any other one as the need arises. But basically, we will try to ensure beyond English, there are other traditional Nigerian indigenous languages that the farmers will be able to also use to access this information. That is on the side of extension. Now, on the side of post-harvest, you are right. Right now, the post-harvest losses is even up to 60% in some commodities. So what we are also looking at is how we are going to increase the aspect of valorization or value addition to process some of these commodities, because the moment you are having processing of some of these commodities, it means you will be reducing their spoilage and bringing more processed products which farmers can earn income on. The other aspect is, of course, we hope that all things being equal, the National Strategic Food Reserve Program is actually being reviewed, and we'll also take advantage of that if there is surplus. Because remember, for the Strategic Food Reserve System, it is designed to modulate so that if there is glut, we're able to take in, what do they call it? If there is abundance, we're able to take in more. And then where the price is going high, we release so that the price can be stabilized. That also is being taken on board. Now, the other aspect you talked about, for example, the issue of cold storage. We realize there are a lot of technologies that are on board now using solar technology so that farmers are able to use it to reduce all the post-harvest losses as a result of lack of storage. These are things that are already in our plan, and for this year, 2024, we shall begin most of these other aspects. So these are the things we are doing because we believe when we combine all of this, like you said, the aspect of logistics. The aspect of logistics also, you remember the Rural Development Department in the ministry, we are having the mandate to actually provide rural access roads, and that also is part of actually our deliverables. It's one of the targets. I can't remember exactly how many kilometers we are targeting this year, but definitely we have some kilometers we are targeting to be able to clear access road, because most of the time when farmers do not have access road, then vehicles find it difficult to go to their farms to bring in their produce, and that's where the losses are taking place.
Well, perhaps to answer or resolve some of the issues that emanate from the area of logistics, one of the initiatives that the federal government has supported with the states is what they call the special agro-industrial processing zones, also supported by the Africa Development Bank, which you cited the other time. Late last year, about 7 governors from the north visited the Abidjan office, headquarters of the AFDB, to have conversations around that. And we are aware that last year and even the previous year, a number of governors have been indicating interest to say, you know what, let us begin these zones. Let's kickstart them. How far with that government-enabled and private sector-driven initiative of special agro-industrial processing zones, and what are the aspirations of it in our country in the light of averting food shortages?
Well, you remember earlier on you were talking about the immediate things. That was why I was focusing on those things that we're going to do. But these are, in the long run, what we believe we should have is what you have just mentioned. It's going to take like 1 to 2 years before we can begin to see some measurable, outcome out of, this effort. But very right, the states have realized the importance of this concept and they are keen in. Right now, the project, I would say, is on course because there are a lot of steps they are taking to ensure that at the end of the day, when these, processing zones are established, it is not just to establish them so that we have a, gigantic project site, but to ensure that there are farmers who serve as off-takers to be able to meet up to the demands of the operations that will be so established in this processing zone. And very rightly, almost all the states have indicated interest, which is the stage in which they are. But I want to believe that it's going to be a game changer when we finally get it off the ground.
Before I ask the next question, I'd like to piggyback on the question Mark asked you the other time about the involvement or collaboration with states. The initiative is coming from your office or from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, but these zones will be sited in certain specific states. And it is government enabled as according to what the program says, but it is something that is going to be driven by the private sector. So how is that collaboration going to work in a way that some elements do not take them over to the detriment of the intention or intendments of that project?
Well, let me say that as a safeguard, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated is actually a major player here. And of course, this platform of government is actually being innovative. They are actually going to ensure that the right thing is done. So we don't have any doubt as to that fear you've exercised, because all parties are going to be squarely involved. The private sector will know exactly what they are supposed to be doing. Government will know exactly what it's supposed to be doing in terms of its own equity contribution. So I don't think we'll run into such kind of, it's not something open-ended. I think it's something that is well packaged. It's something that is, having very clear focus of what is to be done and with clear rules and responsibility for all parties involved. I don't think there will be such kind of things.
All right, now part of the instruments around the SAPZ, to the best of my understanding, as at today, is that private sector is going to play a significant role in it. And not too long ago, you also, late last year, were quoted as asking Nigerians to embrace farming. And that essentially is saying that, look, the more of us that do that, the better. In fact, you cited about 50 million hectares of cultivated arable lands in the country, and that Nigerians should go out and get on this. Question that I would like to ask, that was actually from your ministry. The question I'd like to ask about that is how? Perhaps this special agro-industrial processing zones is one way in which the initiative will work in each of the states, so anyone in any of the states can apply to be a part of that SAPZ. What exactly do you mean when your ministry is saying, you and your colleague are saying that Nigerians should embrace farming? What are you talking about, and how do people get into it?
All right, thank you very much. Like you rightly said, I think what we have as, what did they call it, arable land is about 70 or 73, or some will even say 80 million hectares. And out of which only 34 is currently being used. So what we're saying here is, given the renewed interest globally in transforming food system, and given our own internal capacity, with a large population, the market is there. All that you need is, if you have 2 hectares, if you have 3 hectares, is for you to do the right thing in terms of good agricultural practices. That is how you clear the land, getting the right seed, applying it when you need to apply it in terms of the processes. And at the end of the day, whatever comes out of your, what did they call it, operation, there is market for it. I think that is why we are encouraged to tell Nigerians to embrace it. And of course, for us as a developing country, agriculture remains one of the best areas where, if done rightly, with modern technology, modern inputs and implements, I think a lot of youths and even other people who are outside the age bracket of youth can engage themselves meaningfully. And remember, when we talk about agriculture, we're talking about the value chain. From actually when you start producing, there are people who are dealing with inputs. There are people who are even going to provide services having to do with land preparations. There are people, for example, in Jigawa State, yet again, let me go back there because of the information we have. They were able to train people across various activities in the value chain. So if you are looking for people who will plant for you, there are specialists who are planters. So these are the kind of things we are talking about in terms of developing the value chain. And so at the end of the day, you can actually have 2 hectares that you are going to go into production. And at the end of the day, when you harvest, you are going to get some good profit. So this is why we are saying people should, embrace agriculture. But remember, this is crop we are talking about. There is also livestock. There is also fisheries. So all of these things are agriculture, and there are a lot of ample opportunities. But they are interlinked. For example, we are aware the poultry industry, they will be needing a lot of, what do they call it, maize. So we want to, even from this year, we want to see how we can encourage a crop of farmers whose maize farming is going to be purely dedicated to providing, as input to the, livestock, poultry feed industry. So this is why we are encouraging Nigerians. And, if you look at also the data, you will realize that 70 to 80% of our agricultural production output is coming from small-scale holders who are having 1 hectare, 2 hectares, or below, 5 hectares.
Well, this is exciting, Honorable Minister, but one of the issues that has been raised on Channels Television a number of times is that of awareness, education, knowledge base. We had reason to interview a lecturer in a university, in the Faculty of Agriculture of a university. And one of the things that we were told at the time was that students don't want to study agriculture. The language of studying agriculture remains the same. Agriculture is no longer exciting. It doesn't even sound or look exciting to the students. And the lecturers are having a hard time communicating that to the students. So we are, some will say, at risk of more food shortage, even worse food shortage in the near or far future, if the young people who are currently, that we have in our country today, are far less interested in the kind of agriculture that you are talking about, farming, large scale in every way. Perhaps the challenge now is that of how we are communicating these initiatives to the people, particularly the young people who form more than 50% of our nation today. Is there anything we can do about that?
Well, let me say, Ayo, welcome to 2024. We are yet to begin implementation of our project. But I want to tell you, by the time we start, all of these issues you've raised will be addressed. We've thought about all of this, we are aware, and we have engaged, and we've gotten facts, and we've gotten ways or ideas on how we're going to approach it. For the youth, in fact, let me even put this in context. The fact that we are reducing the number of people in agriculture is not a bad thing. It's actually going to show a growth, because what we want to see is a situation where we will have more people going into agriculture, and rather than have 10 people with one hectare, if we have 1 person with 10 hectares, I think that is going to be much more, in terms of economy of scale for the person, is going to be better. But this is not something that will happen overnight. And that is why we need to really go back to realize that those with 1 hectare, 2 hectares are in large numbers, and we need to give them support. Now, in terms of the youth, remember, agriculture is also moving into the era of precision agriculture, or what some people will even choose to call agriculture 4.0, whereby you are not just going to be applying fertilizer in terms of what they call broadcast fertilizing. No, You'll be applying fertilizer like, you apply drip when somebody is sick and he requires certain amount of, fluid in his body. The doctors calculate, they know exactly what he needs, and they apply. So that type of thing is also being brought into agriculture, and that is why you are having new technologies that are guiding even irrigation. So we are aware of all of these things, and we are working towards ensuring that overall, the youth are going to play a very critical role. And by the way, I think, I don't want to be uncharitable, we need to acknowledge the fact that there are a number of Nigerian youths also who have shown tremendous interest in the agricultural sector and are doing very great things. We have a program where we have identified the fact that this kind of people are there, and we need to bring them on board to support them. All of these things you will get in the course of the year as we begin to unfold and implement the 2024 project of the ministry, inshallah.
The conversations around that will be very exciting, and I'm pretty sure that so many of them are looking to that now. But generally, trust is a currency that we need to shore up in our credit balance in the country between government and the people, particularly young people. So if we're going to get them on board all of these initiatives, the conversations that have gone ahead for decades, if you don't know someone, you won't be able to get some things. If you don't have money to bribe some people, you won't be able to get some things done and all those things. So what should people look forward to in that regard, when there are those right now working maybe with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, or perhaps a number of other ministries like that, or even agencies or departments of government? They will say, without being able to do this or do that, making one compromise or the other, they are not able to get some things done with government. Now, this initiative that you're talking about is fantastic. It's amazing. It's exciting. It has great capacity and potential for the people. But how do we insulate corruption from the system so that the people who will come can trust the process in a way that will credit you and the government?
Well, oh my God.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I think I missed some part of what you are saying, but if I get the gist, you are talking about the issue of trust, isn't it? And how young people perhaps are not feeling confident that, you have to know somebody. But let me say it very clearly. For us, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has made it very clear that he really wants to take Nigeria to the next level. He wants to do something different. And I think in terms of his antecedent, whatever he says he will do, he delivers. And I can speak for myself and my big brother, Senator Abubakar Kyari. We've been together for 8 years in the Senate, and getting this far and being saddled with this responsibility, I want to say it without any fear of contradiction, that we are out to ensure that that bond we signed with Mr. President is going to be our bond. And we are working assiduously to make sure that our area of coverage is truly Nigeria. And so every Nigerian youth who has what to offer should take it from the two of us that we mean exactly what we are saying. When it is time, these things will be transparently done. All of these things, all we are looking for is to bring our best brains, our best hands forward. Because when you go to market to buy food, that food does not discriminate. And therefore, the idea behind him bringing this food must be non-discriminatory. This is what we have already concluded on. We are not mixing word on this, and we are dead serious about this, because we have to help Mr. President to deliver on this agenda of food security. It is when this country is food secure that all the other lofty ideas can begin to take place, because like they say, a hungry man is an angry man, and you don't get anything good when people are angry. We realize this, and we are definitely going to ensure that we keep that bond we have signed. So I want to assure Nigerians that all programs that will be coming out from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security will be done in the overall national interest. And also, for the first time, as part of our project, we are having strategic communication in place. We realize that, like Ayo said, people need to be well informed. Agriculture is a practical thing. If you have farm, you have farm. If you don't have farm, you don't have farm. If there is a crop on the farm, there is crop on the farm. If there is no crop, there is no crop. So this is what we want Nigerians to believe, and we want Nigerians to know where their food is coming from on a daily basis.
All right, we do have some breaking news coming to you now. Former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Mrs. Sadiya Umar Farouk, has just arrived at the headquarters of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, to honor the invitation by the anti-graft agency to offer clarifications in respect of some issues that the commission is investigating. But the former minister had earlier indicated her readiness, as her lawyer says, to honor the commission's invitation. Now, this is the EFCC office located in Jabi district of Abuja. Now, this is confirmation from her lawyer, Oladipo Okpesheyi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. So the news is the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadiya Umar Farouk, arrives EFCC office to offer clarification concerning her stewardship. But we do know that she was invited by the commission. She did say, well, she took ill and that she was going to appear a little later. So that now is a confirmation that that has happened. And some investigation about some 37.1 billion naira alleged money laundering while she was in office. So questions regarding that are part of what the commission may be expected to ask of her. So she's there, her lawyer also confirming that to us here this morning. I know a lot of people also talking about developments from her ministry, currently in SIPA, CEO who has been suspended, and the current Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, all having a question or two to answer about this one. So this is a developing story. I will intend to bring you more as we get them.
Indeed, we certainly be looking forward to more on that, and also send pictures as soon as we can get them. But that's the confirmation that we currently have. The former minister, is currently arrived at the offices of the EFCC here in Abuja.
Yes, indeed. So concluding moments now with the Minister of State for Agric, and so all of what you said, big questions now is the two things. First, how do we ensure corruption in all of these projects you're putting in place? No one thinks about any such, or even if anybody's thinking about that, perish the thought, because you put in place measures. Do you have measures to ensure this doesn't happen?
Well, let me say this. You know, like I told you earlier, when we came on board, we took our time to listen to all the issues on ground. And of course, like we rightly said, we realized there has been this perennial issue of ghost farmers, fake farmers, portfolio farmers, or whatever name you want to call them. And when we came on board, the actions we took, by the time we will be analyzing what happened to this program, we will have been able to tell you the number of, will have been ghost farmers. Because in some instances, where the figure was quoted, we realized that, no, this figure cannot exist here. So that explains why we are looking at this. So one of the measures
you mean in your current findings, the figures that were quoted previously?
No, in the preparation. It's not, I won't call it finding, because it's towards the preparation.
Okay.
When somebody is like you now wanting to do something, and somebody will tell you, okay, I have 200 hectares. When you know in that place, from your own understanding, there can be 200 hectares there. In the past, they get away with it. But now, we have put in place measures that no, that will not happen.
It's interesting.
Now, as part of the collaboration you talked about also, let me say that this year, we intend to put in place a collaborative arrangement by putting what we call joint agricultural project implementation committees with the states. Because we realize what is our entry point when we come to a state. We have our state directors. We have officials also of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security in the states. So what we're trying to do now is to see what we can do. Most of the land, even though we say states, when you go to the states, the lands are in the local government. So we are putting in place measures now to make sure that at the end of the day, we'll have tax teams at the local government. When we have a program, who will work together with the farmers, with the local communities and other interested stakeholders.
Yeah, because part of what people say is that in the past there used to be inspection officers.
Yeah.
But that no longer is it inspection or extension. Extension work.
Yeah. I think earlier on, maybe when you stepped out, I addressed that issue.
Okay, but let me quickly take you up on what your target for the year is, because I imagine, I mean, you have spoken about how what you're looking at now is no longer, what did you say now? But you're looking at hectares.
Yeah, we're not looking at the farmers, number of farmers.
Number of farmers.
Because that's where we're getting it wrong.
Okay.
You see, if it's easier for you to come and say, okay, for example, when you are giving support, and you say 1 million farmers came to collect the support.
Okay, fine.
But the question is out of the 1 million, how many hectares have they gone to go and apply the support to?
It's interesting how you say you're looking at hectares, not yield.
No, I didn't say we're not looking at yield.
No.
Yield is a different entirely. It's about the people. Because when you focus on the people and say farmers, when the farmer collects the input and does not go to farm, then you have a false conclusion.
Yes, but right now you are also saying that you're going to be focusing on the land.
Yes.
How much land are they going to be cultivated?
Yes.
I would have thought that you would have been coming from the end instead. Instead, how much are all of these people, plus the people, plus the inputs and the land, how much would they be able to produce at the end of the day?
That is the idea behind
to incentivize.
Actually, that is why we are focusing on the land. When you focus on the land, that is where you can talk about the yield in terms of per hectare. Okay? And whether you are increasing or whether it is decreasing. You cannot talk about yield without an hectare. It is per hectare. That is why we are focusing on it. And we want to make sure that, because at the end of the day, it is about supply and demand. Like I gave you an example of wheat. We have a demand of 6 million metric tons. But what is the supply? So if we are going to be able to, if you come and you are telling me 1 million farmers are planting wheat, it doesn't make any sense to me if at the end of the day all they are able to give you is maybe 100,000 hectares.
So what's your target for the year? What's your target?
The target?
Yes.
For the year, for this particular program, what we targeted was 120,000 hectares. And in each of it, we're expecting to have 4 tons per hectare if all things are done well. But we know that cannot happen.
All right.
Okay? We know that cannot happen. Some farmers will get it right. They may even surpass even the 4 tons. Because we've seen some farmers who have been able to produce up to 6 tons. It's all about application of knowledge in terms of good agricultural practices, which we have increased. In the build-up to this program, we have actually trained extension agents. Train the trainer who goes back to the local areas to train other extension agents.
All right, just a minute, Honourable Minister. Yeah. Let's take a look at some of these issues. Yes, indeed. We understand that the Supreme Court is at the moment taking a look at the governorship election appeals of Ebonyi and Benue states. So you got a 5-man panel of justices led by Justice John Okoro, the governor of Benue State, and his deputy are in attendance. The governorship candidate of the PDP in Benue State, Mr. Titus Oba, is challenging the victory of Governor Hyacinth Alia. The Court of Appeal Abuja had affirmed Alia's election as governor of Benue State, who was declared winner of the March 18 governorship election. The court has said that they lacked the jurisdiction to hear the petition because it was a pre-election matter. So these are some of the issues we expect to get a decision on, and those are images coming through from the court, which earlier, moments ago, as a matter of fact, we understand that there was an incident of someone collapsing in the court. So there was some frantic movement in that premises. That we're going to tell you, have an idea of how that works, because I mean, lots of people remember how last time almost the whole day waiting for the presidential election tribunal at the Supreme Court. Lots of sleepy eyes, I tell you. I had to go to the back seat. At some point, I came back to the front seat when I thought, look, I should be able to see this through, even though I'm not a politician. They have lots of late night meetings, so they're used to it. But unfortunately, you know, I think I survived it at the end of the day. But right there, we'll hope that all goes well.
You can still see people fanning somebody who appears to be on the floor, and there's an attempt to try and cover what is currently going on. But you can, if you look very critically, you see that there's somebody there who is waving a piece of paper over somebody, trying to revive somebody who perhaps has fainted in the course of today's proceedings. It's not clear if it's a politician, if it's a lawyer, or a court official is simply not clear, but that's what we can see for now. The matter at hand is the governorship matter in Benue State and what other state again? Benue State, and I think it's only Benue I see here, Chamberlain.
Oh, okay, no, you have Benue, you have Ebonyi, and several others. You have, yes, but there's a five-man panel led by Justice John Okoro. So this week is going to be a very busy week for the Supreme Court. So you also have that of Lagos, which they set aside the date, so waiting to see what happens. Plateau also going to happen this week. Kano, as a matter of fact, lots of eyes and focus on that as well.
It's only going to be a very busy week at the Supreme Court. You can see right there the governor of Benue State, Governor Alia, shall we say Reverend Father Alia, and to underscore the importance of what it is that, you know, the Supreme Court is going to be doing. They could either remain in office or they find themselves out in the cold, as the case might be. So it'll be very interesting to listen to the decisions of the Supreme Court as they're rolled out this week.
Okay, so Senator, just wondering, is there going to be a FEC meeting today, though? Any communication about that?
Yes, we got.
Okay,
no,
so
not today. Not today.
Oh, not today. But I was wondering because I mean, all of this. Oh, okay.
When will it be then? Wednesday?
Yeah, I guess so. Yes.
So did they move the time depending on availability and convenience?
I think so.
Okay, so one wonders. I mean, with all of what I'm sure you might have, some of your, at least maybe staff or so, might have brought to your notice if you didn't see it yourself. All of this commentary making the rounds about Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, the Minister of Information has also spoken up about this. Does it, when your colleagues hear these kind of things, what kind of thoughts do you give to it? Because does it could come up in fact, doesn't it?
Well, for me, you know, I don't have any information officially. I was coming from the public service of myself. I was a staff of Federal Ministry of Agriculture. That's where I had all my career for 20 years. And so for me, one thing is, for everything you do, there is a line of communication. If my line of communication is not what I'm communicated with, I don't take any information I see by the side. That is the training. So within that context, I think, you know, people should just try to stick to the rule. And Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been very clear about it. He has told us what exactly we should do. And I want to see that for us in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, myself and my big brother, Senator Abubakar Kyari, we are very, very focused on delivering on our mandate. And we want to do that following the rules and regulations as much as we can.
All right. So we do thank you for coming on. Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi is the Minister of State for Agriculture. Thank you for coming on this morning and all the best to you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see all of you. Looking younger than I left. So I think we need to talk about that.
And we haven't even started with the state of emergency in the agri sector. By the time the country begins to benefit, you can imagine how good
Yeah.
So lots of expectations of this government and your ministry, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely.
All right, so there you go. That is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Can't believe it's over already, but that's how Monday goes. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yusuf.
Should we say happy resumption to those who are just resuming? I'm Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day and week.